The Bhagavad Gita explains that we all have the opportunity to embrace beauty and find spiritual happiness as long as we're willing to let go of different things which are holding us back. And letting go is so important because change is unstoppable, it's unpredictable, and it's uncontrollable. Everything changes in life. There are certain things in our life that are not serving us, that we're holding on to. It may be an object, it may be a relationship, it may be a situation, and we need to let go of this. But we're scared sometimes to let go because it brings a sense of insecurity. Yes, so thank you so much. And yes, the topic for this evening is the science of letting go. I was, some months ago, I was flying into Stockholm, and I was doing this talk actually at a university. So I was just on the plane and I was just kind of getting on the flight to Stockholm. And you know what it's like when you get on a plane, there's always that moment where it's like, who am I going to be sitting next to? So I sat down and there was no one around me. I thought, oh great, I'm going to get 3 seats to myself. I'll lie down, chill out. Anyway, as the doors were just about to close, a rush of people came in, and sure enough, the seats got filled up. And a lady came next to me, and she looked at me. She's an older lady, maybe about 60 years old. And she looked at me, and she was kind of pretty serious, and she looked at me, she said, "I'm a lawyer." Okay. She said, "I'm a lawyer," and then she looked at me and she said, "And I've been watching your Instagram reels." Okay, this looks like a copyright breach here. And then she looked at me and she said, "I like some of them, but I disagree with a lot of what you say." I looked at her and said, "You're a lawyer, it's your job to argue." Anyway, and then we had a beautiful conversation actually. The whole flight actually, we practically talked about everything under the sun. And then the flight was coming into Stockholm, and you know, it's like fasten your seatbelts and all that stuff. So it was coming down, and as the flight was coming down, I turned to her and I said, "You know, I'm just heading into Stockholm University, and I'm going to give a talk on the science of letting go. Do you have any advice for me? What's your insight on letting go?" And she looked at me, and a teardrop fell from her eye. And she said, "Letting go," she said, "I haven't learned that art yet." She said, "My husband passed away 10 years ago." And she said, "Not a day goes by when I don't wish he was still right here with me." She said, "Maybe I need to come to your talk." I said, "I'll put it on an Instagram reel for you." So yeah, it was an interesting point. It's interesting. Sorry, there's no source detected here. Shall I just take it in and out? Or maybe I'll just put it back in. Sometimes you just have to turn it on and off. I did a degree in computer science. The best wisdom I learned in my degree is if it ain't working, turn it on and off. I paid $30,000 to figure that out. All right, here we go. Perfect. Is that good? So it's really interesting that in life we spend so much time thinking about how we're going to attain certain things. We spend so much time thinking, we spend so much time thinking about how we're going to achieve certain things. We spend so much time thinking about how we're going to amass certain things. And we often feel like the entirety of our life direction is based on what's coming into our life. But actually, so much of the quality of our life is defined by how much we're ready to let go. Because oftentimes that can affect our consciousness more than even what's coming into our lives. And so this science, the science of letting go, is a science that's talked about by all the ancient sages and the teachers in different traditions across the world. And today I'll share with you some of the insights of the Sanskrit teachers. When we talk about Sanskrit teachings or we talk about any spiritual tradition, what we have to understand is that there's a unity and diversity between different religions and different spiritual paths, and that in essence what we find are universal principles amongst all of them. So maybe just to give you a little bit of my background just while we get the projector working. This is a speaker stalling technique. May as well give you a bit of a background to who I am. I grew up in London. My parents are from India. And I guess I grew up in a family where I was fortunate enough to pretty much have everything I could ever want. I grew up in quite an affluent background. My family members had 2 cars, 2 houses, 2 phones, maybe too much. But I saw that in life, maybe something was missing. Maybe there was something more that we had to search for and attain and explore. And so at the age of 15, I began exploring different spiritual books of wisdom, and I found wisdom in actually so many different traditions. But I guess the tradition that I gravitated towards was the Sanskrit tradition, and specifically a book called the Bhagavad Gita. And today I'll share some of the insights from the Bhagavad Gita. But basically when I was 18, I went to university. I wanted to study philosophy, but my parents convinced me to do something that would get me a proper job. And so I ended up studying computer science and management at University College, London. And my university years were really defining for me because I was exploring life, exploring all the different approaches to life. And by the time I was 21, I knew that I needed to disconnect and really find my calling. And so at the age of 21, I went to India and I traveled around for 6 months. And I guess in that time, I found my calling as a monk. And so I came back to London as a 21-year-old and told my mom, I'm going to become a monk. And you can imagine how shocking that was. My mom's okay now, she's happy. At 21 I became a monk, and I lived at the monastery. We have a beautiful monastery on the outskirts of London, and I became a monk there, and for 20 years I lived there, and then what I did a few years ago is I took lifelong vows of renunciation. Some monks live as monks for some time and then they make a transition into the world out there. And some monks decide to dedicate themselves to monasticism for the rest of their life. And when they do, they carry one of those. That is not a walking stick for a really tall person. That's actually the staff of a renunciate. It contains 3 bamboo sticks. I'm thinking actually maybe I just need to, you can try that. Give it a go. It contains 3 bamboo sticks, and the 3 bamboo sticks represent the mind, the body, and the words. And the idea of the monastic is that they make the vow to try to serve the world with their mind, body, and words. So So nowadays, for the last 3-4 years, I kind of travel the world and take a lot of flights. I took nearly 100 flights last year. I am covering my carbon footprint, you'll be happy to know. But we travel place to place and try to share spiritual wisdom. So, all right, there you go, just on time. Well done. From the start. Okay. There you go. Otherwise, I was willing to let go of the presentation. A king once asked his subjects, I want you to give me something that will make me happy when I'm sad and sad when I'm happy. I once asked this to an audience and a lady just sprung up and she said, marriage. I said, you said it, not me. So the king asked all his subjects, can you give me something that will make me happy when I'm sad and sad when I'm happy? And everyone ran around racking their brains, and someone came back and he said, I got the answer, I got the answer. And he offered a box to the king. So the king said, what is this? He said, it's a box, open it. And he opened the box and there was a ring. And on that ring were 4 words, and the person said, if you wear this ring and see these 4 words, it will make you happy when you're sad and sad when you're happy. And on that ring, the 4 words were, this too shall pass. Life is in a constant flux. We have a tendency to judge everything in the moment, isn't it? But actually, the good things lead to bad things. The bad things bring about good things. The successes lead to failures, and the failures bring about another success. And like that, life is actually constantly going in a flow. And therefore, I guess the first wisdom of life is to know that the moment you're in doesn't define your life, because everything is just moving. Talking about Instagram reels, there's a good Instagram reel by Novak Djokovic. And he said, you know how many matches I won in my life? 80%. He said, but if you counted all the points that I played, you know how many points I won? 50%. And then he says on the reel, you can lose 50% of the points and still win 80% of the matches, because a point is just a point. And perhaps that is a really good lesson for us to take away in life, that if we're at a point in life which isn't the point you were expecting, it's just a point. And this too shall pass, and everything goes in its own stream. And so, this is exactly what is corroborated by Krishna in the ancient Bhagavad Gita. I mentioned this book. It's a conversation which took place 5,000 years ago, and many, many nuggets of wisdom are presented. And this is perhaps one of the very first pieces of wisdom that Krishna tells Arjuna. It's very beautiful Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, it goes like this. Matra sparshastu kaunteya sitoshna shukadukada agama painonetyastam stitikshashva bharata. Often these verses, we don't just read them, but we sing them, because it's said that there's something in the vibration that when you hear it actually helps you to register what's actually being told in that verse in a deeper level in your consciousness. Because sometimes we read something like this and it's kind of like, yeah, that makes complete sense. But it hasn't quite reached a deeper part of our being. So Krishna says, O son of Kunti, the son of Kunti is Arjuna, who's the listener. The non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of the winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Easier said than done. But it's an interesting point that happiness and distress are moving like the seasons in a cycle. And actually, if each one of us look at our lives, we can see this. It plays out in the history of our own life. We see everything moves in a cycle. And so, the Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters long, and some commentators, they compare it to a jewel box. And they say that essentially there are 3 yogas which are contained within the Bhagavad Gita. If you compare the book to a jewel box, then the base is what we call karma yoga. And karma yoga is the yoga of how to live in this world, how to achieve what you want to achieve, how to be successful, but how to marry success and spirituality together. And that's very powerful. The middle of the jewel box is where the jewel sits. And the jewel of this literature is perhaps the jewel that each one of us seek in our life, which is love. All of us are looking for love, but perhaps life is a story of frustrated love. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, the very next day. You know those songs. So if you look at so many of the songs in the world, there's so much about unrequited love or frustrated love. So the middle of the Bhagavad Gita is known as Bhakti Yoga, which is the yoga of how to actually achieve deep connection with people. And not just deep connection with people, but deep connection with divinity and the spiritual essence of everything around us. But very interestingly, it's said that the cover of the jewel box, or the final section of the Bhagavad Gita, is about something called Jnana Yoga, which is the science of how to let go. Because what happens in life is that sometimes we hold on to things which are actually holding us back. And the Bhagavad Gita explains that we all have the opportunity to embrace beauty and find spiritual happiness as long as we're willing to let go of different things which are holding us back. And so today we'll talk a little bit about that. And letting go is so important because change is unstoppable, it's unpredictable, and it's uncontrollable. Everything changes in life. This is actually, believe it or not, a picture of my old school. And when I became a monk, I used to often go back and visit my parents. So I used to drive past my school. And I'd be like, one day I'm going to go back in my school and relive all those memories. And I kept putting it off. And after about 20 years, one day I was driving past my school and bang, the whole school had been bulldozed. And in that moment, I kind of stopped the car, I pulled over, I came out, and I was looking at this pile of rubble. And it just felt like a museum of memories had just gone into dust. And in that moment, I realized everything in the world is temporary. It's all changing, isn't it? So everything changes in our life. Our health changes. The people around us change. The place where we live changes. Dare I say it, your hairstyle changes. Monks are wise. They shave their heads before they lose their hair. So everything changes in life, and how do we navigate that change? Because change is the only constant. Would you agree with me? Everything in life changes. We've all experienced that, isn't it? I want you to turn to the person next to you, just for I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Why do you think the world may be designed in such a way that everything changes? Why do you think the world is so transitory? Why do you think everything in the world is so ephemeral? Why do you think it is that even though we don't want things to change, things almost forcibly change against our own will? What do you think the reason is behind that, if at all there is a reason. Can I ask you to just turn to the person next to you and just share your thoughts? All right, everyone, can we get you back? Thank you so much. Nice to see some good energy there. Anyone want to share any thoughts, any ideas? Anything quick? Yeah, go for it.
I think change is needed for creation or destruction. If there's no change, there will be no existence.
Okay, so you're saying change allows for the creation, creativity and destruction. And sometimes the old has to die to give way to the new. So perhaps there's change in the world for creative purposes, to bring creativity, a new way of doing things. Yes?
You will stay in your comfort zone and you will be so bored and so lazy to move to something new. So it's supposed to be happening like this.
Okay, so change happens in order to get us out of the comfort zone and help us to explore. Thank you so much. Yes?
Also, I think because energy doesn't stand still, and we're looking at the energy of every living being, every living plant, every living, like the atmosphere, the stars, galaxies, everything is looping, everything is in a cycle of life, and the energy of that does not stand still, it continues to move through time.
Oh, thank you so
it
much.
is in
That's so beautiful, yeah. Energy is always moving. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. I was paying attention in science class. But simply transferred. So energy is constantly being transferred in different ways. And yeah. Time, yes. In Sanskrit is kal, yes. Yes.
It's a constant reminder that it's not a permanent place.
Okay, perhaps it's a reminder that there's something beyond. Yes.
What about the law of karma for every action that you do? There is a reaction. So if you're stagnant, how do you attain to karma?
Yeah, so this kind concept of karma, that we're going through different things and we're experiencing them, and karma, the sages tell us, is educational. So everything changes also to teach us a lesson. Every single change that we encounter in our life is a change which we need to witness in order to elevate and uplift our consciousness. So yeah, change is also educational, yes. Maybe there's no reason. Yeah, I'm glad someone said that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I think when our consciousness evolves, the way we see the world and perceive the data, that becomes different. So when we acquire more knowledge materially or spiritually, our mind perceives that as change.
Okay, so you're saying in one sense there's no change, but we're perceiving it as a change. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, things are happening the way it is meant to happen. We see that as a change because we start perceiving.
Oh, okay, I see, yeah. It's not going to plan. That means it's not going to my plan. Right? But maybe it's going according to a higher plan, and it's not really a change, it's just the flow of life, and it's meant to be like that. That would be a nice way to look at things. Good. All right, yeah, maybe one last one. Thank you so much. Yeah. Would you like to add to that?
Why am I here? There must be some way out.
Yeah. Caleb's a music producer. I'm not just plugging him here because he wants to work. But we were discussing. He was asking me, "What's your favorite bands?" So I was telling him some of my favorite bands. Now you'll understand how old I am. But one of my favorite bands was Oasis, and wanted to watch them many times. And I think they had a song, right? Live Forever. Right? I don't know if anyone remembers that song, but it was this whole song about I really want to live forever. And there's a sense in which we, every fairy tale ends, and they lived happily ever after. Why does every single fairy tale end like that? Is there a deeper sense of us that desires eternity, that desires permanence? And is the impermanence of this world an opportunity for us to begin exploring where eternity can be found? And maybe that's a good kind of segue into helping share with some of you the 5 topics of the Bhagavad Gita which really kind of depict this. So the Gita is an ancient Sanskrit work, and for the next 5-10 minutes I'll just share with you some of these principles, and then I'm going to kind of open it up and see what questions you may have. But these 5 topics of the Bhagavad Gita are almost the blueprint of universal reality. And the first thing that the Bhagavad Gita kind of begins with is explaining that we're all eternal beings, that the body, the mind, these are just vehicles that we're using for some time, but that there's a spark of consciousness animating this machine, and that's actually who we are. It's not that we have a soul. According to the Bhagavad Gita, we are the soul, and we have a body, we have a mind. And when this body dies, when this mind transforms in any way, the soul remains untouched, and that soul continues on. Energy can't be created or destroyed, but simply transferred. And so this whole concept of reincarnation, like we've been here before. I'll tell you an interesting thing actually. This could only happen in India. Some things can only happen in India. So some years ago, there was a newspaper article in the Times of India about someone who remembered their previous life. And in their previous life, they had a memory that they had been murdered. And they remembered the person. They could visualize the person. But what had happened is that when this person in their previous life had died, they couldn't find the perpetrator, so it was an unresolved case. But now this person remembers their previous life and knows who it is, so he goes to the police, and he says, I know who killed me. What are you talking about? You're here. He goes, no, I know who killed me. What do you mean? No, I remember my previous life. Oh, you were that person. They opened up the case. And he gave all the information about the person who killed him in the previous life, and it all fitted. And so they had a whole murder trial, and for the first time ever, someone was a witness in their own murder trial. Only in India. So the first topic of the Gita is that we're the soul. And what are we doing here? The second topic of the Bhagavad Gita is it talks all about this world. It essentially says that this world is made of 3 energies. I won't go into the details of it, but if you imagine like the 3 primary colors, like blue, yellow, red. Blue, red, and yellow. And how those 3 primary colors mix together to create a whole spectrum. It's said that there are 3 foundational energies which this world is based on, and different combinations of them make up this kind of reality that we're living in now, which is real, but which is temporary. And then what the Bhagavad Gita says is, what is governing the soul's journey in this world? That's karma. So that's the third topic of the Bhagavad Gita, that everything happens for a reason, and for every action there's a reaction. And then the Bhagavad Gita explains that outside of this there's divinity, there's another reality, there's a spiritual, transcendent place. And that divinity is controlling this world through the concept of time. And that divinity and the soul also has a connection, and that's the kind of foundational principle of yoga. So if you want to summarize the entire Bhagavad Gita in like one diagram, this is how you'd summarize it. And this blueprint is incredibly powerful, because when we understand these 5 topics, the Gita proposes that we could answer any conceivable question that anyone may ask at any point in their life. If you want to know why bad things happen to good people, if you want to know why material happiness never seems to last, if you want to know why, whatever it may be, you can learn it by understanding these 5 topics. But the key thing here is time. And what the Gita proposes is that time is the destructive factor which basically changes everything in the world. And time acts to basically create impermanence in the world. And the impermanence is created in the world to basically help us to realize that there is an eternal nature that each one of us have the ability to access. And therefore time is almost destroying everything in this world. I don't know how many of you watched Oppenheimer, but for those of you who watched Oppenheimer, many of you know Oppenheimer. He studied at Harvard. He actually studied Sanskrit, and he had a great reverence for the Bhagavad Gita. And when he detonated the first test run of the atom bomb, then as the atom bomb was going off, he recited a verse from the Bhagavad Gita about time. And that verse in Sanskrit tells us, "Time I am, the destroyer of all the worlds." And so he realized that this atom bomb is going to speed up the impermanence of the world. And so time takes away everything. Leave you with a few more ideas. They asked people in the world, this was a social survey, what do you do to relax? And you want to know what the top 4 answers were? I'll show you, and I want you to tell me, what do all of these things have in common? These are the top 4 ways in which people in the world relax. They go on holiday. Watch TV or watch a movie. Take intoxication? Of course, not here in Australia. Go to sleep. These are the top 4 ways in which people in the world relax. Can you see a connection between all of them? They're temporary. They're all an escape. When you go on holiday, you escape your life. When you take intoxication, go to sleep, isn't it? It's very interesting that when people want to relax, what they're basically doing is trying to escape life. But how long can you go on holiday for? How long can you watch a movie, even if it's Bollywood? It comes to an end. You can take intoxication, but there's the morning after, the night before, and sleep. My record in sleeping is 14 and a half hours. But after that, I couldn't do much more. The famous writer C.S. Lewis says, "If I find in myself a desire which no experience of this world can fulfill, I must conclude I was made for another world." And so why am I telling you all of this in terms of the science of letting go? Because we have to let go of things in the world. There's certain things that we have to voluntarily let go of. There are certain things in our life that are not serving us, that we're holding on to. It may be an object, it may be a relationship, it may be a situation, and we need to let go of this. but we're scared sometimes to let go because it brings a sense of insecurity. So the Gita tells us that if we learn this art of voluntarily letting go of certain things, we can save ourselves a lot of heartache. There are certain things that we have to internally let go of. They've already disappeared from our life, but in our heart, we're still remembering them, we're still holding on to them, we're still hoping, we're still planning and plotting that maybe it will come back. And while holding on, we become prisoners of the past. And the Gita says we have to proactively let go of things that we haven't yet achieved, but in our hearts and minds, we've already developed an attachment to having. And sometimes that can deeply limit our experience of life. But the point I'm making here is that you can only do these things, you can only let go of all of these things if we're able to look beyond and see that there's something much greater on the horizon, there's something much bigger, there's something much more beautiful to aim for in this world, and therefore let me not be held back by the things of this world which are not serving me, but let me let go, realizing that the world is impermanent, the world is always changing, and it's like that for a reason, because it's pointing me towards the place or the state of consciousness that I'm meant to be in. So, spiritual literatures help us put the soul back into yoga. Yoga is not just about relaxing the body, but about awakening spirituality. It's not just a physical thing which helps us to have good health, but it's about something which helps us to feel spirituality, divinity on the inside. Yes, when you're good at yoga, you can connect your head to your toes. But when you're even better at yoga, you achieve an internal connection of the soul to Supreme or the Divinity or whatever you want to call it. Yoga helps us to have a balanced mind. And it's not just about curing problems externally, but it's about curing mentalities within us, which actually bring us more pain. And more than helping us to enjoy the world, yoga or spiritual consciousness or meditation helps us to actually learn to serve the world, because in service, in a non-exploitative mentality, we can actually experience a much greater joy. And so today I'm just here sharing a few ideas with you about letting go. Maybe in your life you're finding it hard to let go of something. Maybe in your life something is slipping away and it's causing you great pain. Or maybe there's something that you're hoping to have that you haven't quite got, but you feel that desire and that attachment is also holding you back. The Gita helps us to understand, let go. Let go when the universe is taking things away, because the universe is helping us to turn our attention towards the thing that we really want to attain, the thing we really want to grasp. And the spiritual journey and us all coming here together today is about trying to understand what is that we're attaining or trying to move towards. And that's why these events are so beautiful, because we have an opportunity to discuss what could lie beyond. So thank you so much. These were just some thoughts that I wanted to share with you. I hope some of it perhaps triggered some thoughts in your mind. And yes, thank you very much. Do you have some time? Yeah. You have some time? Yeah. We have a little bit of time. And I saw many of you attentively listening. So perhaps if you have any questions or anything I said which perhaps you may want to know more about, or you want to maybe perhaps explore a little further, then I'm happy to try to share any thoughts with you if there is anything. Okay. Yes. Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. Sometimes when it seems like we have a world that's constantly disappointing us, and we might be able to let go of something, but how do we look beyond when we're so used to being disappointed that we don't have faith in the looking beyond? So we just give up on even looking beyond, and we just stay disappointed, and we don't trust the beyond. How do we deal with that?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So how do we deal with it when we're going through so many disappointments in our life, and we're hitting so many dead ends, that sometimes we think, is there more? Is there a future? Is there something bright on the horizon? Maybe I'm just kidding myself, and maybe I should just give up. And many people do give up. And there was a famous author, Viktor Frankl, and he wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he was in the concentration camps during the time of the Nazi regime. And so around him, he was recalling all his experiences in the concentration camp, and every single day he was seeing people dying. And in his book, he writes something amazing. He says, everything can be taken away from a person, but the last human freedom is the freedom to be enthusiastic about life. And even if everything is taken away, if one has that enthusiasm, that hunger, that purpose, then everything can be made back. So therefore, having purpose, having hunger, having hope, this is actually the greatest asset that one has in their life. I often tell people the best alarm clock in the world is purpose. Because when your eyes open in the morning, if you have purpose, you jump out of bed. Evenings like this are so powerful because they open us up to the prospect of a purpose that perhaps we have never thought about or never deeply explored. And so what I would say to someone who feels like they're hitting a dead end and they can't see anything more on the horizon is I would say keep searching, keep exploring. Speak to people who do have purpose. Speak to people who do have an enthusiasm and a hunger for life, and find out where they're getting it from. And perhaps when you tap into a similar source, you may see that there's so much more that life can offer you. Often one of the things we do as monks is we try to comfort those who have experienced loss in their life. So just before I came to Australia, I was with one family who lost one of their young children. And that was so difficult for the parents. And the message we try to share is that life may never be the same, but life can still be beautiful. And what I was trying to share with them was that although it's such a difficult experience, and although it feels like you can't move forward from here, know that there's always more beauty to experience in life. And by connecting with spirituality, it helps us to see beyond our immediate purview. So some thoughts. Hope that helps. Thank you. Yes, anyone out here? Yes.
I guess letting go and looking beyond is something that's great, and it gives you that hope. But I guess during that process, when you're doing that, usually when you're experiencing something difficult, at the same time, how do you be present? So practicing that, I know use of presence is really important. how do you apply that?
Yeah, that's such a good question. That sometimes, in the sense of we talk about looking beyond and looking at what's beyond this world and after this life and transcendental to this material world, but what about presence here? And can we marry both things? It's interesting that the Bhagavad Gita is spoken on a battlefield. And a battlefield is a very, very interesting setting, because on a battlefield, the present is super important, because in a moment there's going to be a war, it's going to break out, and you need to know what to do. But the interesting thing about a battlefield is that the ultimate also becomes super important, because on a battlefield, what could happen at any moment? You could die. And so the battlefield is a very, very interesting place, because it's the place where you have to be completely present in the moment. And at the same time, you have to really be aware and conscious of what's beyond it all. Because both realities are almost right there in front of your eyes. And therefore, the unique thing about the Bhagavad Gita is it's not so otherworldly that it makes you kind of dysfunctional or disinterested or kind of not really present in life. The Bhagavad Gita teaches us how to have transcendental and very high spiritual aspirations and a very deep spiritual vision, and it also marries that with helping us to be completely present in the moment and understanding how every experience and every emotion and every event that we're going through is connected to that spiritual journey that we're on. And so sometimes people have this idea of spiritual people that they're just escapists. Like when I joined the monastery and became a monk, one of my relatives said, why don't you get a job? So I said, I have a job. I share spirituality with people. They said, that's not a real job. How much do they pay you? I looked at him, I said, I don't know about the salary, but the retirement plan is out of this world. So sometimes people have this notion of spiritual people that they're just concerned about the afterlife, they're escapists, they can't deal with reality, like get real, just, living with your heads in the cloud. But the Bhagavad Gita is a book which teaches us how to have like a deep vision and incredible practicality. How to be deeply rooted in transcendence and at the same time completely down to earth. And when you marry both of those things together, it creates for an incredibly dynamic life. Like sometimes people think spiritual people are not ambitious because they're all about the afterlife, so they're not concerned with this world anymore. But actually spiritual people are the most ambitious, because what they're trying to do in this world and the change that they're trying to create and what they're trying to contribute is they're trying to contribute something which doesn't just help people in the here and now, but which connects them to something much bigger. And so there's a sense in which we can be both, completely transcendental and at the same time down to earth and present. Some thoughts? Yeah.
I want to ask a question on behalf of those of us who practice kirtan sometimes, or like doing chanting or mantra music. I was thinking about how so often, at least for myself, I come to kirtan, I arrive at kirtan carrying so much stuff, and by the end I feel so light. And I was wondering if you could share philosophically what kind of is happening there with that sense of letting go that we often feel after kirtan.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah. So mantra means to free the mind. Mana means the mind and tra means to free. So we've all heard that saying, it's all in the mind. There was once a lady and she came to the doctor and she said, I've got frogs in my stomach. And they're alive. And the doctor said, There's no way you can have frogs in your stomach and they can be alive. I've been a doctor for years, it's not possible. She said, no, it really is, it really is. So he couldn't convince her, so he says, okay, let me try something. So he gave her an anesthetic, she got knocked out. He went down to the pond, he got a couple of frogs, and he brought it back, and she woke up. He said, yeah, you were right. Here they are. She said, I told you, I feel so much better. So the doctor was feeling pretty satisfied with himself at this point. She came in the next week. She said, doctor, I got more frogs. He said, it's not possible. She said, yeah, the last one laid eggs in there. And there's a few more in there now. And he realized, oh God, I can't do it again. If you try to solve problems externally, you'll just create more problems. What we perpetually do in life is we try to solve our problems externally. We think an external solution is going to somehow bring a sense of stability in our life. One English writer says, peace is not the absence of anxiety, but it's the presence of divinity in every situation. We're perpetually trying to create a life around us in which there's no anxiety, but it doesn't work. But what we can do is we can work on our internal world, we can work on our mind, and perhaps that's the invisible part of life that's so much neglected in the world we're living in today. And so mantra is one of the oldest spiritual technologies in the world, a technology which helps us to get to the root of all of our problems. There's an ancient Sanskrit book called the Bhagavad Purana, and there's one person who reflects on his life and all the suffering he went through, and then he comes with a mature realization of why he suffered. Shall I share it with you in Sanskrit? This is after a lifetime of experiencing so many things. This was his realization. Nayam jano me sukha dukha hetur na devatatma griha karma kalaha mana param karanama mananti samsara chakram parivartayedyat. He said, I look back on my life and I ask myself, why did I suffer? Nayam jano. He says, my suffering was not due to the other people around me. Sometimes we think, the mother-in-law. Sometimes we think it's other people causing our suffering. He said, no. Nayam jano me sukhaduka hetur na devatatma. He said, I used to think the cause of my suffering was the gods. The gods were not smiling on me. I was wrong. Graha. He said, I used to think the cause of my suffering was the planets. No, my planets are not good. My astrology is very bad. The stars are not aligned. He said, no. Karma. He said, I used to think the cause of my suffering was karma. No. Kala. He said, I used to think the cause of suffering was time, because in time everyone suffers. No. Then, what was the cause of your suffering? Mana param karanama mananti. The param karanam, the ultimate cause of all my suffering, manam, is my own mind. I was once driving and there was a car and it said, do not disturb, already disturbed. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what solutions you make. It doesn't matter how many security alarms and insurance policies and all kinds of arrangements we make. The real problem is closer to home. So that's why there's sometimes the most simple things are the most beautiful things, and they're also the most profound and life-changing things. I always like Einstein. Einstein said, you will know the truth because it will have two qualities. It will be simple and it will be beautiful. And sometimes I think of mantra like that. It's so simple and it's so beautiful. And therefore, maybe it's the truth. Maybe. So yes, something about that. Is that okay? I see lots of hands and I'm happy to take them, but I know we're on a schedule also. There's one and there's two hands. You put me in a difficult situation. She had her hand up first. Okay, you're going to go anyway? All right, I'll do quickly both of them, half. Yeah.
My question touches on the periphery of letting go. So it is said that anyone's spiritual growth can be assessed by how much they're not attached to something or how much they're detached to something. And we often see that even as spiritual practitioners, we have problems seeing divinity in other people because of any kind of grudge or any kind of personal preferences that we might have. So my question would be, how can we actively start seeing that divinity, or how can we start actively seeing Krishna in people?
So just for those of you who didn't hear, the question is that oftentimes we have many individuals in our lives, and what can we say? The good, the bad, and the ugly. And some people are very kind, and with others we have different types of interactions. And how are we able to see divinity in all of them? Everything in life is happening to teach us. In life, what the scriptures explain is that when we look at life, instead of trying to enjoy every experience, what we should instead try to do is learn from every experience. Okay? If you change this mentality, and it takes some practice, but every time you're going through life, instead of trying to feel it, that doesn't mean you shouldn't feel it, but along with feeling it, try to learn from it. And what happens is, whether it's a person or a situation or an event or something that happens which is difficult, it feels difficult. If in that moment we're able to ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? What is this situation helping me to develop? How can I turn pain into purpose? How can I turn problems into progress? When we focus on that growth mindset, then even when things feel bad or feel difficult, we actually experience growth. And you know what? The happiness of growth outweighs the disappointment of that particular situation. In my small life, I looked back and I realized one mantra, and I'm still trying to embed it in my consciousness, but I know this mantra will help me in my life and has helped me. And that mantra is learning to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And you'll see in your life that the most challenging times, sometimes the most challenging people, these are the ones which ignited the most growth in you. So a smooth sea never made a good sailor. So it's always a bit rocky. And even the people that criticize you, even the people that fail to reciprocate with you, even the people that sometimes let you down, those people are also delivering a beautiful teaching that can help you to elevate your consciousness. Good luck. Was there a hand there at the back? Or? Yeah, okay, you get the last one.
Amazing. That was really lovely. Thank you so much. My question is that I know we need to let go, but besides kirtan, what else are our tangible tools to do this?
Yeah, thank you so much. Maybe I'll just share one because of time. One that's very dear to me, that's helped me. In my life, books became my best friend. You're probably thinking, nerd. They say small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, but great minds discuss wisdom. When I became a monk, I would wake up sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd spend the first hour of the day reading spiritual wisdom. And in that reading of spiritual wisdom, I just found so much perspective in life. It helped me to understand why things were happening. It helped me to understand what more there was behind the immediate events. It helped me gain inspiration, hope, clarity. It answered my doubts. It made me smile. And it reminded me, don't take the illusion too seriously. Here today, gone tomorrow. We're here for some time, and we have a beautiful opportunity to do something, and then we move on. And so, for me, spiritual books are that thing, and spiritual wisdom that gives so much perspective. And so every day I continue to do that. And spiritual wisdom is so beautiful that the more you... I tell people spiritual wisdom is like a spiral. You keep reading it again and again and again and again and again, and every time you read it, you kind of hone in to the essence of what it's telling you, and the essence is simple and beautiful. And so that's what I guess I would encourage people to do. If you want a new idea, go to an old book. One English writer says, the ancients stole my best ideas. No, not exactly. Maybe they had those ideas before us. And so every question that we may conceivably ask in our life, the spiritual literatures answer those questions before we've even asked them sometimes. And so they really are the GPS of life. And just on GPS and a sat-nav, I'll end with one final story. As monks, I was telling you, sometimes we go to comfort people, and we were going to a funeral once. So we drove into the crematorium, and as we parked the car, we were sitting in the front, and there was a sea of graves. So we were all looking at the graves. And then the driver turned the engine off, and the sat-nav said, "You have reached your final destination." I was like, oh my God. It's like, it was one of those, like, it was just so prophetic. It was just like, oh my God. So perhaps today, as we discuss the science of letting go, Steve Jobs says, every day when I wake up, I ask myself, if today was my last day in this world, would I be doing what I'm going to do today? And when the answer is no, for too many days in a row, then I know I need to change something. And so sometimes remembering our temporality in this world helps us to achieve beautiful things. Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful audience.